able to show this much, but I'm gonna take a daring chance right now. All right.
Come and plant all this stuff.
Oh no, definitely they did not plant this.
You just have to wait until we're. Wow, I thought it was kind of just like right there. I didn't know we have to go this far in.
Oh yeah, missiles and nuclear bombs are a bit big.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't think, because I didn't think that it was this much land.
So I've been looking through these documents and doing a lot of research, and I've come to the conclusion that time is running out for the Tularosa Downwinders. So a few months ago, I went on a road trip to the White Sands Missile Range because I thought it would be cool, and before I got to the front gate, I saw protesters surrounding the entrance. We were able to get through the gates and enter, but that's when I got the idea for this video. So here we are on our way to Trinity site, and so yeah, we're going to be looking at the whole site. We're going to be seeing the historical value of this. We're going to be seeing everything that has to do with Trinity. And this place only opens twice a year to let visitors in. So this will be an interesting experience. I think it will be really interesting. Here we are approaching the gate. Honestly, I did not think there'd be this many people, but there's a lot of people. But that's not what's important. Gotta read this sign. Entering active test range. Areas potentially contaminated with explosive devices. Stay on the roads. Do not disturb any items. If items are found, call police. Well, that's reassuring. Authorized personnel on official business only beyond this point, except for today, because, yes. In the car right now, and we're like actually going into the base and the area of where the obelisk is. We're not supposed to take any video or anything of the base until we reach the actual destination, the actual obelisk itself. But we are passing by a few different buildings, badging, security, that kind of stuff. There is a ton of guards. Well, not as much as I thought there would be, but there is a bunch of guards. And they're all over the place. There's like agents everywhere. We're like being constantly watched. I wonder why there's this much protection at a missile testing range. That would kind of make sense. But yeah, there is... It's interesting to say the least. So we're still going in. It's a lot of land. We just passed the viewing site, or no, the mine site. So we just passed the area where they test mines, obviously. But whenever we get to ground zero, the obelisk that's there is at ground zero for one, and secondly, the radiation is at a safe amount, but it's still higher than normal. So what's going to end up happening is by the time we leave today, we're going to have been received 1.5 times the normal amount that you get in every day. So it's not enough to actually harm you or affect you in any way. It's just slightly more than you receive in your average 24 hours. Can't see too clearly. But in the distance, oh wait, you can't see it anymore, but in the distance there were missile launchers mounted up on the range. You can see it here, there. Yeah, there you go. You can see it right over there. Interesting stuff. Hunting area number 4. Oh my gosh, that's ominous. We've been driving for a while. It's pretty far. Not far enough though. But anyways. I've been writing stuff down that I'm seeing on the signs. There's stuff like FET's operations, and there's more stuff. It's great. It's great. Hunting site number 5. It's interesting. very, very interesting. Inconsiderate of the military to not label their stuff. It sucks, man. I really want to know what they're doing. I really want to know. Because, yeah.
So, where do we begin? Well, the year is 1942, and the Manhattan Project had just started, with its first offices being within 270 Broadway in New York. And even though the project started in Manhattan, the project name would soon become a misnomer to hide the project as something to help the city of Manhattan, gaining the name Manhattan Engineer District, or MED for short. Move forward to December 28th, 1942, and several facilities used to get nuclear material and build a nuclear bomb were placed in remote areas in New Mexico, Tennessee, Washington, and Canada. Yeah. This is where we diverge the story to the New Mexico site, as in Los Alamos, where on January 1st, 1943, Project Y began, where the first designs of the nuke were built and made to eventually test on July 16th, 1945, where in the New Mexico desert near Alamogordo and White Sands, the bomb known as the Gadget was successfully detonated, creating a light so bright that some of the scientists present during the test had thought that they messed up and ignited the atmosphere on fire. The test, now known as the Trinity Test, produced a mushroom cloud about 40,000 feet tall, a lot bigger than they thought it would be, going over the mountains and spreading radioactive dust on the surrounding land and residential areas. But wait, residential areas? You thought this place was completely deserted, didn't you?
I have been recording oral histories during the entire 17 years that we've been doing this work, and the people that I've talked to who were alive at the time, imagine it produced more heat and more light than the sun. The explosion was felt and broke windows as far away as Gallup, New Mexico. Okay, people were knocked out of their beds that day. The blast was so strong. So what people told me is they thought it was the end of the world. We live in a time right now where you can get on your phone, and if something's happening clear across the world, you know about it within minutes. But people didn't have televisions or radios or even newspapers that were widely circulated back then. So people had no idea what they had just experienced. It happened before dawn, but it lit up the sky brighter than daylight. And people were knocked out of their beds, and for days they really didn't know what happened. And people told me they thought it was the end of the world. A lot of people told me our mom got us together and had us pray the rosary. And so the history of it is that it was a horrific experience for people. They were scared. It was scary. It was awful. I was born in 1959, but I lived in a community that's about 45 miles away from Trinity. And we have an organization here called the Tularosa Basin Downwinders Consortium, because this is the Tularosa Basin. This huge valley here is called the Tularosa Basin. And we've been fighting for 17 years to bring attention to the negative health effects suffered by the people who lived around here and were overexposed to radiation from the bomb. So there were 15,000 people living in a 50-mile radius to the Trinity site. There were children, men and women living here back then. I always tell everybody there's an abandoned ranch house right there to give you an idea how close people lived. We know that there were families living as close as 12 miles to the Trinity Test site. And they didn't warn anybody before or afterwards.
People lived in the basin as close as 12 to 8 miles from ground zero whenever the Gadget went off. With thousands of people living in a 50-mile radius around the White Sands missile range, there's plenty of people who felt the effects whenever the Gadget went off.
There's this one lady, she told us about this Gallegos family that lived like 8 miles from ground zero, and most of them died to cancer and different types of illnesses caused by the radiation and the poisoning that it gives. You can see the ranch over there.
The abandoned farm.
Several different abandoned houses, ranches, farms, everything. It really shows how close people were to ground zero. It shows how close many people were. There were a lot of people that could see the blasts, could hear everything, were knocked from their beds, had their windows shattered. and soon got radiation poisoning or some type of cancer effect from the blast and the fallout afterwards. It's really sad to look at, to think about.
So you read the story about Barbara Kent,
Yes.
who was a young woman from El Paso at a dance camp in Ruidoso.
Yes.
She experienced the fallout there, and the young girls, they were all about 13 years old. They actually thought it was snowing in July, and they were rubbing the ash on their faces and catching it on their tongues, and they all had horrific health consequences to that. Barbara Kent has had a multitude of different cancers. She's had several miscarriages, and all her daughters have had cancer. And it's not just that. Her mother and her brother, who took her to Ruidoso to the dance camp, stayed in Ruidoso overnight that night instead of traveling back to El Paso, and both her mother and her brother had brain tumors.
Now, you may be thinking, well, it was a long time ago. So what? Well, the effects have been felt for a long time and will probably still be felt for decades to come, with birth defects, mutations, and several diseases caused by the radiation produced by the bomb being something that is still occurring to this day as a generational factor and effect that the bomb has left on the people. Not only that, but it was something that was terrifying to the people who had to endure the brightness, shockwave, radiation, and heat that the bomb brought.
So the radioactive isotopes that are released from an atomic blast like that are there's a multitude of radioactive isotopes. Some have very short half-lives, like iodine as an example. But cesium and strontium have longer half-lives, like 30 years. But the bomb was packed with radioactive plutonium that has a half-life of 24,000 years. So 24,000 years, we're still going to have radiation out here in this whole basin.
The radioactive dust from the bomb went everywhere in the basin, on the soil, on the skin of people, the water, and the land around the testing area. No one had running water in the area surrounding the test site due to the fact that there are no towns close to the people's homes, with the water these people get being from holding ponds or ditches. All these sources were contaminated after the Trinity Test, along with the food coming from the cattle in the area. This is trinitite. It's what happens when sand in the area is condensed and superheated by the blast into a sort of radioactive glass-like material. I would show you how radioactive this is, and I would show you the radiation levels on this if I had a Geiger counter, but I don't, so you're just going to have to take my word that it's real and still radioactive. I mean, I have the pages, the things confirming that it's real, so there's that. And ever since 1990, the U.S. government has been compensating people who have been affected by radiation exposure. The Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, or RECA, has paid out $2.5 billion in healthcare coverage to people who qualify. And the worst part? Well, whenever the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act was actually put into place, the Tularosa Basin, the first victims of the nuclear bomb, were completely excluded from the act, meaning that they would get no compensation of any kind.
So no one in New Mexico, except for uranium miners who mined uranium before 1971, are included in RECA, or the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. And that is a huge injustice to the people of New Mexico, because they compensate people through that fund in places downwind of the Nevada test site. And just as an example, one of the places they compensate people is in Winslow, Arizona, and those people deserve to be compensated, but so do we. Winslow is 259 miles from the Nevada test site. Tularosa, where I grew up, is 45 miles from the Trinity Test site. So you can see what a difference that is and how unjust it is to take care of one group of people but completely ignore another.
So, what to make of all this? Well, first I need to tell you about the Tularosa Basin Downwinders Consortium, or the TBDC, which started in 2005 to bring attention to the effects of the gadget on people from the Tularosa Basin area, and to bring awareness to the negative health effects brought due to the ionizing radiation. And on June 27, 2018, the TBDC testified before the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee on the need to amend the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, with the testimony linked in the description below.
We actually got these forms here. We're gonna sign them, send them in.
so that hopefully these people could get the justice that they deserve, the compensation that they deserve, because they were excluded. No one told their story. No one really did much to help them. So hopefully we'll be able to help them through this video, through this information, through all this. Do you know how to support your organization and how to help people here in Tularosa and all throughout New Mexico that are feeling these effects?
So we have a letter writing campaign going on now, and there's all kinds of literature here that you can take with you. You can contact your members of Congress to let them know that this is important to you, and you can reach out to other people and let them know that we need everybody's help. The people of New Mexico are likely, we're fighting right now to get this bill extended because it sunsets in July of this year, and if we don't get something done before that, we probably will never see the justice that we deserve.
So, what else can you do to help? I have some links and sources in the description that you could use to help the Tularosa Downwinders, and you could also sign up to receive emails at www.trinitydownwinders.com. You can also support financially by sending checks made out to the care of Tina Cordova, mailing address also in the description. And make sure that you help and support quickly, because even though RECA has been extended for 2 more years, it does not mean that the Tularosa Downwinders will get the compensation that they deserve. So thank you all for listening to this, and I hope that you all support the TBDC along with me and the rest of the people trying to make a change through this.
All young people should be aware of this, and this is history that should be taught in New Mexico history, so that people like yourself are aware of it, and you are able to at least take it into consideration with your own health, because I always say there's nobody that's gonna, there's nobody out there that might not be affected. Everybody can be affected.